Yay! This is good. This is exciting for me because I am a fan, and fan for me means that select group of writers who I look forward to reading the next book. So
Oh,
I don't know how many there are, but you're one of them. So that gets me all pumped up and excited about doing it. And I was thinking today about being a book writer, and this may sound stupid coming from me, but it's a really hard thing to do. I think it's maybe statistically easier to maybe play in the NBA or play football somewhere, book writers, and to make a living for it. And no, it is today, this is one day I got three two ARCs, advanced reading copies, and then this sucker here to read from people that, yeah, you know how it is. Read my book, it's so good, and I've been working on it, and da 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 da. And so anyway, so you weren't an overnight. Well, it was fun. I had Kwame Alexander on, and his crossover, which won a Newbery, it got turned down by 17 publishers. And my first novel, the Thomas Behrman number, 31 publishers turned it down. And then it won an Edgar as Best First Mystery. So I don't know what it all means, but it took you into your 40s to kind of get going here. So tell me about that.
oh yeah. So yeah, my first book got turned down by almost 60 publishers. And so
Okay. All
uh
right.
I think being a writer, you have to develop a sort of thick skin. But I think you
Mhm.
have to have a little tiny bit of egotism in so much
Oh,
as you have to believe that you have something worth saying. You have to believe that the stories I want to tell, somebody else should read them besides, my mom and my brother. And so for me,
uh-huh.
that was the thing that kind of helped me persevere. It's like, well, I keep getting turned down, but this is the only thing I feel like I'm good at. So I'm going to stick with it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, you are good at it. You're good at it. Um, I'm big. This is just me, and some writers are all over the place in terms of how they do what they do. I am big on outlining, so I outline everything. I'm not a slave to it. I do it, and then I always want to change stuff. Like I'll start writing, and I'll go, "This character is more interesting than I thought he or she was," or "I don't want to kill the villain off," or whatever the heck it is. So, what kind of process, if you have a process at this stage, has it changed much?
No, no, not really. I'm more of a, I guess I'm not a pantser, but I don't really outline. I write a pretty extensive synopsis to
Okay.
myself. And so it's basically me telling the story to myself. Wouldn't it be cool if A happened and then B happened and then C happened? And so, but like you, I'm not a slave to that synopsis. It's
Hmm.
more of a roadmap for the
Do you
stories when
write
I
it or
sit
do
down to
you
write
just
the
have it
actual
in your
book.
head?
It's like I write it
You,
out. I write it out.
you
I
write
actually
it. Okay.
handwrite it. And it's like 3 or 4
Uh-huh.
pages. And then I have it on my desk. And so as I'm writing, I kind of refer to it, but I'm not a slave to it. And like you said, I'm always happy when the story decides to go in a different direction. And
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
I like I like to say it's like traveling through Vermont, and all of a sudden somebody's like, "Oh, we should go over here and check out this little diner,
Yeah.
or we should drive down here and see this particular clutch of trees." And so for me, that's how the process works, and it works for me. Like I said, everybody has a different way of doing it, but for me, that's been I think I'm a slave to the superstition of doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Vermont in the fall, if you ever get a chance, it's unbelievable when all the leaves change and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bug and Ike and Titus Crown, and they a little bit of a similarity in that they all have sort of tough backstories. And in each case, they're trying to sort of whatever, make it get past their past. And you had your years at Lowe's, so working at Lowe's, right? So you got your backstory too, and now look at what's going on here. But anyway, so just talk about that a little bit in terms of characters and coming out of whatever they come out of, and
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm a firm believer in the idea that the novel is telling the reader a story, but it's taking the characters on a journey. And so for me, I have a very humble background. I worked as a as a manager in a retail store at Lowe's for a number of years. But
Hmm.
before that, I worked landscaping and I worked on construction crews and drove forklifts and all of that. And so for me, I love the idea of the regular person doing extraordinary things. And so,
Hmm.
like Bug in many ways is a regular guy. He's a father,
Right.
he's a husband, he's a really good getaway driver. But in every other aspect of his life, he's a
A
regular
little
guy.
trick,
Ike
yeah.
is a really good landscaper. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And so for me, I'm fascinated by that. And so the characters I create, I love to see them go on that journey where they use the one thing that they're really good at to sort of facilitate the story.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, 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 yeah. No, well, whatever. You do that. You take us on those journeys, and we want to stay with it, which is the trick. Because a lot of people want to take us on the journey, but you don't necessarily want to stay there. I'm hoping that these books that were sent today, but people send them, and you go like, damn. I mean, that's one day, and those are like 6 or 7 hours a piece, and that's a lot. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So you've gotten a lot of, yeah, I know. Well, and you want it. We're going to do something on this Substack thing later in the year, and we're going to really try to help out a bunch of writers. But so we'll see how that works out. And we always try to do it. I have a scholarships at the University of Iowa, their writers workshop there, and we were out there over this in the spring, and it's interesting because they're all good writers, really good writer, better writers than me, a lot. But you just sit there and you go like, I don't know, man. You better write some stuff that people want to read. Otherwise you're going to be a really good writer working as a barista at Starbucks. And that's a tricky
Very
thing.
true.
That's a tricky thing. You can be a great
Yeah.
painter, but if the galleries don't want to put your stuff in, you can be great, but yeah, assuming you want to be able to do it and earn your living doing it.
Hmm.
Um, so you've gotten a lot of nice commentary and recognition in New York Times and the NPR and most of the critics. Um, do you find, or are you finding that um, affects your writing at all? Wanting to keep to live up to your fame and whatever the heck it is, or recognition and.
Yeah. Not so much in it's that's a great question. I think it affects me sort of very tangentially, where I feel like, oh man, I hope this next book is really well received. I hope this book is
Hmm.
really well accepted. But when I actually sit down to write the story, I put all that out of my head. I really just want to tell a really interesting story that's entertaining and fun. And if it brings some thoughts to your mind or you think about some issues, that's fine. But the main thing is to tell a good story. And I mean,
Hmm.
like I like to use the action and the intensity and the suspense as sort of the candy. And then I can slip, some medicine in there every once in a while, some
Uh-huh.
serious
Uh-huh.
thoughts. But
Uh-huh.
ultimately, I just want to tell a good story. I want to entertain people, and I can't do that if I'm wondering what the reviewers are going to say, or I'm wondering what
Hmm. Hmm.
someone on a free review site is going
Well,
to
I
say.
know they're going to piss all over me, so it's all good. You know, I one of the things with me, people don't necessarily understand this, but one of the reasons that I write different kinds of stuff is I like to stretch. And I'll continue to, there'll be an Alex Cross every year, but I like to, I did some kids' books. Partly because our own son, and he wasn't reading as much as we'd like him to, and so I said, well, let me just start writing stuff. And the thing about with kids is you got to give them good stories. If the schools do it, a lot of schools do it all wrong. They're just giving them stuff that they don't like. If the objective is to get them reading, don't give them
Exactly.
stuff they don't like. That just doesn't make any sense. Um, you have, and it's one of the reasons that I enjoy doing reading your stuff. You have a voice. You have a kind of a distinctive voice. Um, I, where'd it come from? Do you think? I mean, any influences, uh, uh, whatever, writers,
Oh
any?
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
mean,
Oh gosh.
yeah, a
So
little bit, yeah.
as a kid, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so for me, one of the three biggest influences as a crime writer for me were Williams, Walter Mosley, Dennis Lehane, and Elmore Leonard. And I'll
Uh-huh.
throw
Uh-huh.
Chester Himes in there as well. So
Uh-huh.
four, they're my Mount Rushmore. And when I sit down to write, I always want a book that I feel like they would read it and like it. Like I wanna,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to emulate them, because I did that
No,
early in my career and you
Dennis
kind of
doesn't
create
like
a
anybody's stuff.
yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, he's a good guy, good
He
man.
is.
Yeah.
I've met him a few times and he's a really great guy. But when I started write seriously, when I was taking it seriously, it's like I want people to feel about my book the way I felt about those four gentlemen's books. And so I could see flashes of them in the way I write. But I was
Hmm.
lucky that because I was kind of writing in obscurity for so long, I was able to incorporate the things about them that I like into what I hope is a pretty unique voice of my own. But if you look, you can see flashes of Walter Mosley and Dennis Lehane and Elmore Leonard and Himes, and those are the main ones there. But I
Hmm. Yeah,
think I
a
was
little
able
bit
to
more
create a
toughness and
sort of
darkness maybe
particular
than any of
point of view.
those. A little bit for me anyway. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel a little Stephen
Yeah,
King in you, little
yeah,
whatever.
oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think all of that. The first like grown up book that I ever read was Salem's Lot. And so again,
Uh-huh.
taking a little bit of those things that I really like and trying to sort of illuminate them through my own prism. And
Hmm.
I hope I do pretty
Now, when you were growing up,
well at that. I try.
yeah, we're breaking up a little occasionally, so it's sort of like doing when you go on CNN and you're somewhere else and there's a 1.5 second, and you go like, "Oh, I don't know if this is making sense." The growing up though, books were an important part of your household, right? How did that work out? Your mom was a big reader, your grandmother.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody in my household read. So my grandmother read romance novels. My mom read biographies and historical fiction. My uncle read detective novels, and my aunt read horror novels. So I was surrounded by
Uh-huh.
books.
Okay.
So even
Well,
at
that's
like
good.
11 and 12 years, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
even
that's a
at
big
11 and 12
deal.
years old,
Yeah,
I
it's a
was
big
reading a
deal
lot.
when there are books in the house. It really helps in terms of, my mother and father were big readers. My grandparents not. They were both like sixth grade graduates, but my parents both read a lot. I think you referred at one point about your grandmother reading trashy crime novels, which is interesting. That raises, and I talk to writers about this a bit, but the whole notion of, they're always talking to the critics about guilty pleasures. And I'm like, why would reading a book ever be a guilty pleasure? To me, if you go into the library, they should put a little star on your head, and if you read a book, you get another star in your head. That's good. You're reading whatever the heck it is. This is good. This is good. I think it is anyway.
Oh, I
What do you
agree.
think about that, Gil? Yeah, uh-huh.
I agree 100%. I don't think anything you read should be considered a guilty pleasure. If you're reading, you're educating yourself. And if you're educating yourself, you're becoming a better person.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it certainly
So
opens your
my
mind
grandmother
up.
loved trashy romance novels, trashy crime novels. Oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I grew up reading those. And I think for me, it made me realize that you can say really cool, funny, important things in something that might be considered trashy. I think that, so
Uh-huh.
for me, if people think my books are trashy, that's fine. I take that as a badge of honor.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, as long as they keep reading, that's a useful thing. John D. McDonald, I think you brought up too, was another yeah, 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 yeah. He when my first book got grabbed, they sent out for a quote to him. And he said, and it was one of those quotes you go like, man, this guy thought about this a little bit. And he said, I'm quite sure that James Patterson wrote 1 million words before he started this novel. And the reality is I hadn't because I was only 26, but uh, but it was a great kind of, yeah, okay, you're thinking about stuff, and well, what a nice compliment, and what a good writer he is. And he also, Michael Connelly's a friend of mine, and with Connolly, he made this terrible mistake with his character Bosch. because every year he thought because he's putting out a novel that Bosch has to get a year older. What a stupid, idiotic thing. But I learned from John D. McDonnell because he only like he'd write the next book and his character will only be like a week, it will be a week later. So he could keep this guy young and vital and da 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 da. But with Connolly,
I,
he's got Bosch is about 90 years old now, so he's screwed.
I I'm sorry, that was funny. I grew up reading a lot of Travis McGee. I love John D. McDonnell, and I think John D. McDonnell had the great career where he wrote the Travis McGee stuff, and then he wrote stuff that wasn't Travis McGee, and he sort of had the full width and breadth of being a crime fiction writer. So he was a huge influence on me too.
Let's sing the praises of Josh Getzler. Tell us about this guy.
So
We
Josh,
like him, right?
yes, very much. We like Josh a lot. Josh changed my life. I met Josh at BoucherCon 2018, and I was a panelist on a panel about Southern crime fiction. And after that panel, we took questions, and it was one lady who asked a really unfortunate question, and the way I answered it got Josh's attention, and he approached me in the hallway at the hotel, and it was, "Hey, I really like what you're talking about. I'd love to see something you're working on." And I went home and I talked to a friend of mine named Rob Hart, who's also a client of Josh's, and
Uh-huh.
I asked him about Josh, and I said, "What do you think of this guy? Is he on the up and up?" And Rob said he'll change your life, and he did. And I signed with him, and he's just the best agent. He's become one of my best friends. He's such a insightful, intellectual, erudite person about the business and the art. Writing is one thing,
hmm
and publishing
hmm
is another. It's good
Yes,
to
it
have an
is.
agent, yeah, who could bring those two together.
Also, the notion of people who believe in you along the way. Who believe? I mean, Josh at some point came in. Who believed in you along the way?
Oh man,
Did did Kimberly believe in you? Your wife?
yeah. So my so my mom was probably the first person, and she's passed away, but she got to see some of this happen, some of her belief bear fruit. And then it seemed like she handed the baton off to my partner Kimberly, who, believed in me way more than I believed in myself, who had
Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
confidence in me that I could do this, and I didn't. And I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. That when BoucherCon came up in 2018, I didn't think that we had the money to go
hmm
to the convention, and she bought me the plane ticket and got me the hotel accommodation. She said, "You'll never forgive yourself if you don't try."
hmm
And and so she has a lot to do with this as much as Josh and everybody else. But I think writing is a very solitary team sport.
Yeah.
And
hmm
so you have to have a lot of good support around you to do this crazy thing that we've
hmm
chosen to do.
I kind of resist the conferences and stuff like that, but I did go to Boucheron once, and I really liked it a lot. The camaraderie, the drinking, the whole ball of wax. It was good. Yeah, writers, and because as you say, we're home, we work in our little dens or whatever the heck it is, and we don't talk to people so much, and it was really fun. To have so many people there that wanted to shoot the shit about writing. Because most people they don't know what it is. I mean, they're curious about it a little bit, but they don't know. Do you have at this stage? This is a stupid question. I'll ask you anyway. Do you have a favorite among the books that you've done so far?
I've been asked that a bunch, and I think I don't have children, but I think if they're like children, you don't want to pick a
Okay.
favorite. But I think if you want to read a book that is most representative of me and how I see the world, then
hmm
probably it's Blacktop Wasteland. I think
hmm
that's the book where you get the most raw, unvarnished version of my worldview in that book. And I think also that was the book I wrote when I felt most myself. And what I mean is I I'd had an agent before I got with Josh, and that relationship didn't work out, perfectly amicable. It happens. It's a business. And I remember when I started writing Blacktop Wasteland, I said, I'm writing this for me. I'm not writing it for an agent or an editor that they have in mind or anything. I just want to tell the story. And that book is probably the one that if you read it, you have a really great insight into me as a person. So I think that, I guess that's kind of my favorite.
It's my favorite too of yours for what that means because it's just it's so simple. It's just we're not trying to make a lot of different. It's just boom for me, just a real and I'm big on that kind of thunderbolt crash down the highway. Well, there's obviously cars a big part of that one, but yeah, there's some, and I liked all of them, but that was what. Now, what are you working on now? Do you have something? Because I'm hungry. I need another book.
Yeah, I just finished a rough draft of my next book, tentatively titled King of Ashes. It's a
Mhm.
crime novel about a family who owns a crematory that falls, unfortunately, in with some gangsters who get them to use the crematory for nefarious reasons. And it's a story about how they try to get out from under this unfortunate situation they find themselves in.
Mhm. So how are you dealing with your success, your fame, your whatever, whatever the heck it is, whatever it is? Interesting thing with it because everybody deals with it a little differently, and some people kind of complain about it. Really, whatever. I don't. Yeah.
I don't complain at all. I think the biggest thing for me is sort of this imposter syndrome that I feel,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
where I feel like, I'm just a guy writing books. I don't
Hmm.
think of myself in any term, any sort of special way. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: I've learned that I think you have to kind of accept where you are, that your books have touched people and that people are enjoying it. And I think when you sort of are dismissive of that, you're sort of insulting the readers and the fans and the people that support you
Hmm.
and believe in you.
Hmm.
And so I've come around to this idea of accepting that I'm kind of well known. It's
Hmm. 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 Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's good, but it's so many. It's a fun. We were in a restaurant. This is a couple months ago, and a little Italian restaurant we like, and a small place. And the waiter took us down the aisle, and this lady popped up. She says, "I know you. I know you." She said, You sold us our life insurance." Yeah, that's it. No, ma'am. And she insisted she wasn't going to let me go. That was it. I was going to be the insurance guy. So yeah. I said, no, my dad was an insurance guy, but not me. So what did I miss? I like to do the, I just call
I
this
think that's
human to
everything.
human, and we just kind of,
I just
yeah.
really oh no, I just was gonna say I'm a big fan of your work and I'm very honored that you wanted to talk to me. This is great. It's always fun to talk to another writer and sort of figure out how we all get to the same place through different roads. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I think we travel the same way in a lot of ways. And a lot of stuff that you say, makes a lot of sense to me in terms of what I do. I grew up in a small town, upstate New York, and I still see it as a blessing that I see the world through the eyes of the kid from there. So it's like, shit, man, I'm on with Sean Cosby. This is cool. No, seriously, you know what I mean? So I can really enjoy this stuff and get a kick out of it. And I was looking forward, all day to this thing, that we were going to talk, and because I do like your stuff, and I kind of wanted to hear and meet you a little bit. I thought it would be fun, and it has been.
oh gosh. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Patterson. This has been so much fun to me. And like I said, it's just such an honor to sit down and talk a little shop with you. And again, I'm just honored that you wanted to speak with me. It really means a lot.
Well, I did, and I do, and it was good. So thank you so much, and
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to the next one.